Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Welcome once more to another video podcast of Alexandra Mayers Live. I'm your hostess, Alexandra, but my close friends call me Alex. Today I'm going to go into chapter 6 of the recently departed Shelley Lubben's book, The Truth Behind the Fantasy of Porn, the Greatest Illusion on Earth. Now, before I get started, I'll go ahead and give you all a quick update in regards to how I'm doing. I'm doing fantastic. As of current, I just passed my 5-month mark in regards to being completely free of nicotine and alcohol. I actually feel like I've been reborn. I haven't felt this good, I think, since I became an adult, really. I'm also training for a marathon. I'm entering week 9 of my training for that. So I'm not sure how many weeks I'm actually going to need to be ready to run the marathon, considering that I am still in the physical recovery mode of being completely free of nicotine especially. But I'm hoping that once I hit the 30-week mark, I'll be about ready for that. Now, I do want to share a few tweets that I posted about 4 days ago because they're important for many of you to hear, especially when it comes to an individual who was an extreme critic of Shelley Lubben's work, a gentleman known as Ari Scott Bass, aka Michael Whitaker. Sometimes good people only become evil after being overly hurt. I've been thinking a lot about Ari Bass lately, and from my 5-month nicotine and alcohol-free perspective, I've noticed a few things about him. The primary thing being that he tries to fix people. Ari tried to repair his ex, Christina, but couldn't. He tried to help Melissa Hill, but couldn't. He tried to improve Sean, aka TRPWL of the Real Porn WikiLeaks, but he couldn't. And I even see what he tried to show Shelley Lubben about herself, but it was too late in doing so. If you ever see these tweets, Ari Scott Bass, you can't fix or repair a person who doesn't want to improve on their own. Someone can have extreme potential, but that doesn't mean they have will or drive. I hope this year you just focus on you and become the best that you can be. Part of why I cut alcohol and nicotine out of my life late last year had to do with how Shelley Lubben died. I hate to say it, but I'm glad Ari Scott Bass documented her situation at the end. I'm also glad he revealed who her husband really was. That was the real truth. So now I'm going to get into chapter 6 of the book. If you would like to go back and hear my commentary on chapters 1 through 5, you can do so if you visit alexandramayerslive.com or youtube.com/Alexandra Mayers. But if you take anything away from this book, if you're an active adult actress or porn star or sex worker, keep in mind that nothing good comes from overly indulging in alcohol or consequently becoming an alcoholic. I'm not anti-porn, but I am anti-abuse and anti-organized crime. And just as I continue doing what I need to do in life, I want many of you to keep that in mind. And I want many of you to keep in mind that it's very important that if you're going to do anything in life and find any level of success, you must love yourself. And now for my commentary in regards to and a reading of chapter 6 of Shelley Lubben's book, The Truth Behind the Fantasy of Porn, the Greatest Illusion on Earth. Hell's Getaway, chapter 6. It was a busy Friday night, and the song Love Hurts was playing. A Latina girl was up on the stage dancing, while I was over by the front door chatting with Mario, the cute new bouncer on duty. Suddenly, I heard a loud pop and Mario collapsed onto the ground. I threw my tray down and screamed, "Call 911!" Within seconds, people were crowded around Mario trying to stop the bleeding. Girls were screaming all around me. "Shut up!" I yelled and shoved them into the dressing room. I looked in the mirror and there were streaks of blood on my top. Shit, what just happened? After a few minutes, I ran back out to Mario and saw the paramedics trying to revive him. I prayed silently, "God, please save him." Right before the gunshot, Mario was telling me about the new baby his wife just had. Another girl and I started picking up beer bottles like crazy and dumping ashtrays. I never moved so fast in my life. 2 hours later, we got the news from the club manager that Mario was dead. I went home and sat in the dark while holding my bloody bikini top. Thoughts flooded my mind. I felt so bad for Mario and his family. The guy was only 21 years old. Then another thought crossed my mind. It could have been me. Suddenly, an awful feeling gripped me that it was supposed to be me. Somebody out there was trying to kill me. It could have been anyone who pulled that trigger and killed Mario. But I didn't want to stick around and find out, so I called up my old madam, Vanessa, to try to get some side work while I looked for another club to dance at. I hated to go back to prostitution, but Mario's death was too close of a call for me. Vanessa was delighted to hear my voice and have me come back to work for her. By then, she had a lucrative escort agency and was running about 40 deals a day. So I bought a beeper and started pulling tricks all over Southern California, making anywhere from $300 to $500 an hour, depending on what the client wanted. I drove all the way down to San Diego and back up to the San Fernando Valley. After a year of hustling men all over Southern California, I thought I was on top of my game. Through some of my elite connections, I began to pursue the Hollywood dream I fantasized about as a child. Like every other sex worker in Southern California, I thought for sure I would become the next Sharon Stone or Julia Roberts. With Hollywood directors and agents piling up in my pocket, I began to go to casting calls and try out for different acting parts. I became an aspiring extra. Promises of big breaks made by horny Hollywood directors. I believed them when they told me I would become a big star. Promises like that were usually made before I got down on my knees. Whenever Hollywood didn't work out, I pursued the music industry. One of my regular guys was a music producer who had a recording studio in his mansion in Chatsworth. With his help, I wrote, sang, and produced my first music album in 1991, entitled Let There Be House, which included the song Mentiroso. I wrote it to get back at Melon Man Ace for Mentirosa, a Spanglish rap song about female liars. Maybe I was a little sensitive. Or maybe I realized my whole life was a huge lie. Rejected, beat up, overworked, and overexposed. I was a single mom surviving a double life, with one foot in the door of Hollywood and the other spiked heel stuck in the sex industry. I felt blocked at every turn. It was as if God himself was against me. One day, I became so frustrated with the whole LA scene that I began looking for jobs in other cities. Desperately searching for some new angle, I stumbled upon an ad in a newspaper. Seeking young women, all travel expenses paid, $2,000 a week. Wow, now that sounded good. I immediately called the phone number and some guy, Rico, answered and told me they were looking for dancers. I was so relieved to hear it wasn't prostitution. I showed up expecting a professional agency, but it was two Mexican men and a briefcase of piles of cash. I had never seen so much cash in my life. They told me there was plenty more for me if I agreed to fly to Mexico to dance for 2 weeks. I was a little hesitant, but they assured me everything was cool. Don't worry, Hera. Everything is cool. The girls are making a lot of money, and the beach is muy bueno. When I heard my two favorite words, beach and money, my eyes brightened. They also promised me a first class ticket and showed me a pamphlet of the beautiful resort where I would be staying. A guy friend of mine warned me that it didn't sound legit, but I ignored him. I was ready for a change, and I needed to take a break from California. Besides, I was La Huera Loca. I felt bad about leaving my daughter Tiffany, but my guy friend assured me she'd be fine. So I grabbed my bags and headed toward the Los Angeles International Airport. I took a first class flight on Mexicana Airlines and landed in Guadalajara 3 hours and 5 minutes later. The smell of tacos and cigarettes filled the air. I grabbed my suitcase and headed outside where two Mexican men pulled up to the side of the curb. I guess the blonde hair gave me away. Hola, ¿cómo estás? I showed off my Spanish skills as I handed my suitcase to them. I learned quite a bit of Spanish at the Mexican bars I stripped at. Hola, one man replied, and the rest of the ride it was very quiet. About 40 minutes later, we arrived at an old building covered by trees and surrounded by birds of paradise. I got out of the car and walked up the cracked steps to a secured door. After a short knock, a fat Mexican man opened the door, and I followed the two men into a corridor of glass sliding doors. Now I knew something was wrong. The women behind the glass doors weren't laughing or talking. I noticed out the corner of my eye a girl wiping what looked like tears off of her face. What the hell is going on here? Thoughts of escape immediately filled my mind, and I felt my hands turn into fists. When I was about to bash the guy's head in, a voice came to me and said, "Stay calm, Shelley." I knew it was God. I took in a deep breath, and my false smile led me down the hall into my room. "Be ready by 8, Huera," one of the men said as he walked away. I turned around to a striking young woman with long blonde hair and terrified blue eyes. I'm going to pause right there. What Shelley is describing in this chapter is sex trafficking. Shelley Lubben was sex trafficked, according to chapter 6 of her book. And what she describes still happens today, not only to women from America going to Mexico, it happens to women within America who answer ads to fly out to Los Angeles. As of current, actually, there is some California legislation on the table known as California Assembly Bill 2389. And if you're a concerned United States citizen, I strongly advise, especially if you live in California, to support that particular bill. I believe it's being carried by Assembly Member Cristina Garcia, because that particular bill does address the element of sex trafficking and how sex trafficking is attached to organized crime and abusive elements linked to the legal adult entertainment industry. From my perspective right now, there's quite a few young men and women who are sex workers and porn stars who are under the impression that AB 2389 isn't good for them, but in actuality, it is. It actually would save quite a few young men and women's lives from my perspective, because just as so many professions need and require the individuals within that profession to be licensed, Adult entertainers within the United States need to be educated and licensed as well. In fact, the IEAU, which was founded by a porn star known as Felicia Ann, fully supports AB 2389. That right there says quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. I turned around to a striking young woman with long blonde hair and terrified blue eyes. I looked at her with a puzzled face and blurted, "What the hell is going on here?" "Shh," she said as she shut the door. Then she whispered, "Don't you know where you are? You're in a Mexican brothel." "Bullshit," I contested. "I didn't sign up to work in a Mexican brothel, and I was told I would be staying in a nice resort." "Shut up," she said. "These guys are going to effing kill you if you don't shut up. You're in a Mexican brothel and you're not ever going back home." Stunned, I stood there with my mouth open until I shook my head and boldly came back with, "Well, nobody is going to keep me in a prison. That's for damn sure." Then I turned around and stared at the barred window, while silently praying to God to get me out of this. 8 o'clock rolled around, and we heard a knock on the door. "Come on, Ueras, time to go." I followed the other girls in a line where we were taken outside to an old yellow bus in the street. Wearing a tight yellow dress and holding nothing but a small purse for tips and tampons, I stepped up into the dirty bus thinking about what was ahead. "God, get me out of this," I said as the bus pulled away from the curb. As I looked around at the faces of the other young girls, I noticed none of them had emotion. They were as cold as ice, staring straight into the view ahead of them. I tried to talk to one of them next to me, but she wouldn't speak. I sat back in disbelief, as not one of the women had the will to fight. I was such a fighter. I couldn't relate to their submissive behavior, and I began to devise a plan to escape. Luckily, I spoke enough Spanish. I don't think the Mexican mafia planned on that when they lured me in. If you would like to read the rest of this chapter, you can always go over to Amazon.com and purchase this book as a Kindle download. I highly suggest that you do. If not for you, for someone else, especially a young woman in your life who you may care about and who you may want to protect from sex traffickers. As many of you out there are aware, I've gone through a lot in my life, more so than hundreds of video blogs and written blogs could ever express. But just once more, I want to ask those of you who watch me to make sure that if you know any at-risk young women, make sure that you do reach out to them. Make sure that you instill within them that it's important that they respect themselves and that they love themselves. And that's all I can really ask that you do. Because respecting yourself and loving yourself are two of the key things that it takes to lead a successful life. So thanks once more for watching this video podcast of Alexandra Mayers Live. And remember, you can always follow me on Twitter at AlexMayersLive, or you can visit my official website, alexandramayerslive.com. Have a great day. Bye-bye.